John Justice Show, live right now on the CW58.
Right now, good morning, Frank.
Good morning, John.
Let me, for those that are just getting caught up to speed, we're giving you everything that we've had so far, but let me break down the timeline just real quick. I've done this a few times this morning, and it's just what the events that transpired last night after the FBI released the photos. Before I get to that, real quick, were you watching the news when the FBI put out the photos of who they believed these suspects were?
Right, yesterday, you mean?
Yeah, it was pretty apparent early on that at least it appeared the FBI knew these were the dudes. They were, we need to find them. We need to find them now. Help us, please.
What they didn't release is they had video that tracked them dropping the bags off, and the video captured them all the way up to the point of the bag going off. So that's how they were able to go back. They didn't release that video for obvious reasons, but they were able to show and connect the two with the backpacks and then the location where they were dropped off.
The sequence of events started last night. Let me get to here we go. Just before 11 o'clock. It says law enforcement officials believe this is when it began, just before 11 o'clock, which was just hours. I mean, not long at all. Just hours after the FBI had released these photos. The suspects took to the streets, approached a police officer from MIT, shot him dead.
Right.
They stole his cruiser, his officer cruiser, then robbed a nearby 7-Eleven, carjacked a Mercedes SUV, briefly kidnapped the driver, then set them free. Then the high-speed chase ensued. The suspects threw explosives out the window during the chase that followed. A Boston Transit officer was shot and wounded, and he's still, we don't know the status of how he's doing right now. The dead suspect, the man in the black hat from the FBI photos we know as the older brother now, had an improvised explosive device strapped to his chest. The firefight ended when one of the officers ran towards the Waterford officers and ultimately fell to the ground. One of the eyewitnesses said they couldn't tell whether the man was tackled or had been shot, and there's some speculation the bomb may have actually gone off at the time as well. That's the audio that we played earlier. The younger of the two, the brother, Jokar, drove the SUV through a line of police officers at the end of the street. A retired letter carrier said he heard 3 loud explosions a lot throughout the night. Now that's where we are. Boston's essentially been brought to a standstill. Waterford has been closed down along with all the outlying areas as they continue to search for the 19-year-old. Are hearing some reports as well that the 19-year-old may not have been posting online. That might have been erroneous reports that somebody else may have been posting online. But it turns out the two individuals are from Chechnya. 19-year-old was born in Kyrgyzstan. Tamerlan, the 26-year-old, born in Russia, just outside of Chechnya. They suspect the brothers of Chechen origin as well. Pete Williams reported earlier that foreign military training, that the two suspects, more than likely the older brother, may have had foreign military training as well. The younger brother being 19, and you may not be able to answer this or not, Frank. The younger brother being 19 has been in the country for a little while now.
Right.
Probably didn't get any training given his age.
Yeah, but from what I understand, neither of them had a lot of friends in the United States. They were actually upset that Americans didn't want to befriend them, and they actually, I don't see why. Let's see, they're crazy, radical, young Islamic terrorists. You know, it's hard to find people to hang out with.
The older brother, yeah. The younger brother had a lot of friends. He was well-liked in high school, apparently, from what I was reading. The younger brother had a lot of friends, was well-liked. The older brother was a bit of a recluse and didn't have any American friends, the boxer.
Well, I've been reading the reports like you have today, and I've seen mixed stuff on that. But they did not have, and what I'm seeing now with regard to the manhunt, it is clear that they didn't have a large support network to rely on, and they're out there on their own trying to rob 7-Eleven, so they got gas money to get out of town and whatnot. So these guys, I'll tell you, I've got experience with Chechens. I'm probably one of the few guys probably in Tucson that's actually been up close and personal with Chechens, and I'll tell you why. After 9/11, when we went to Afghanistan, during Operation Anaconda, we ended up fighting against a lot of Chechens that had come into Afghanistan to help the Taliban against us while we were over there. And the reason was back during the Soviet invasion of Chechnya, a bunch of Taliban and Mujahideen left Afghanistan to go help the Chechen rebels, Muslim rebels in Chechnya fighting. So it was this Muslim thing where, we got to help out with the jihad, right? So they go over there, they help. And then when we went into Afghanistan, the Chechens returned the favor and sent hundreds of Chechen fighters into Afghanistan. And I have been, unfortunately, on the receiving end of Chechens shooting at me. And during one particular ambush where we were ambushed, We chased these 6 Chechens all night long through the mountains with AC-130 gunships hunting these guys down. There were 6 of them. 4 of them were killed by the AC-130 gunship, and we were finally able to capture 2 of them at the end, only because they were completely out of bullets and they had no other means to fight back. We captured these 2 guys, and what was the astonishing thing, when we first grabbed them, we had with us an Afghan interpreter, and he started talking to them in Pushtu and Urdu, trying to see, and they talked back to us in Russian, and we were like, whoa, these guys are speaking Russian. What the heck is going on? And then the CIA guys that were with us quickly realized who they were, and they said, ooh, we got to get these guys back because they're Chechens. These guys are tough guys. The Chechens were always a problem. Anytime we encountered Chechens in Afghanistan, we treated them with far more respect because they were far better trained and far better, more efficient at shooting than the Taliban were. So seeing this connection again, and it's a twisted connection. These are young, particularly the 26-year-old who spent time in Uzbekistan, and by the way, that is the country that borders Afghanistan to the north. These guys have clearly, in my mind, have that same radicalized Islamic mentality, and although the regular media doesn't want to say it, they're radical Muslims who have engaged in this conflict mainly because of what's going on in the Middle East. They've been to the Middle East before. They've been possibly to Afghanistan. I've seen reports where the older brother's been to Afghanistan. So this is clearly connected to Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and nobody wants to talk about it. But that's fine. Hopefully it'll come out down the road.
Well, here's what we have, and I've got a couple of different updates for you of what I want to share. More details emerging from last night, including the driver who was taken, who SUV they stole, the Mercedes guy. He's commenting now. But to Frank's point, and I want to mention too, 751-1041, any questions, comments you have as we continue to give you coverage. And if we have any breaking news, we'll let you know. There's now been linked up online. Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the older brother, linked a video on his page just earlier this week. The Emergence of Prophecy, the Black Flags of Khorasan. The video details a key part of jihadist methodology. One of the most significant battles, doing that thing with my fingers, fought against the infidels will take place in, is it Khorasan? Khorasan? Okay. A geographic area that includes parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. My colleague here has explained the Khorasan is considered by jihadis to be the place where they will inflict the first defeat against their enemies in the Muslim version of Armageddon. The final battle to take place in the Levant, Israel, Syria, Lebanon. Mentions of the Khorasan have begun to increase in Al-Qaeda's propaganda. This, of course, does not make the brothers Al-Qaeda operatives, but it does increase the likelihood that Tamerlan, the older brother, if this is indeed his YouTube page, was at least sympathetic to their underlying ideology.
Yeah, let me go back to the great point. I'm glad you're bringing this up. Whether or not there's a direct link to Al-Qaeda is almost irrelevant to a degree, because what you have here is in the mindset of radical Islam, when one Islamic tribe or ethnic group or whatever is attacked by a non-Muslim group, an infidel group, John, when the infidels attack, other Islamic groups rally to their aid, and that's just the normal thing, because it's like blood, right? So they see themselves connected by this bloodline, and they don't care. Whenever there's an infidel on Islamic soil, whenever there is an attack on Islamic interests, they rally. And if you see that in the United States with organizations like CARE, and I'm surprised CARE hasn't been out, the Center for Arab-Islamic Relations, out defending these two guys, because usually they come to the rally. And that is a mindset that I saw in the 5 years that I spent in the Middle East. The minute you go after anybody of Islamic ethnicity, all the other Muslims rally around them. And that's just the mentality. So these guys are caught up in that. They see it as, part of the big Islamic struggle to wash the infidels, free the planet Earth, and put in an Islamic caliphate state. That's all they want. They want to take over the world. Nobody is getting this. It just astounds me that the liberals out there continue to ignore the fact that young radical Islamic terrorists are our problem. And they continue to be the problem. And Salon comes out and says, "Oh, let's hope it's a white guy,"
dude,
because they know, gee, Who in their right mind would go into a very highly populated place with improvised explosives where there are women and children present and blow it up? Only a coward would do that. Ooh, who could that be? Radical young Islamic terrorists who have a pattern of going into crowded places with women and children present, and they are afraid to encounter any men head to head. And we learned this in Afghanistan. They're chickens. When you go after them, when we would roll into the small towns of Gardez or Zermatt or these towns in Afghanistan where Al-Qaeda and the Taliban were at, they would run because they would see the special forces coming into their towns, and they knew what was going to happen. They were going to die. So they would go and grab their wives and daughters and children and go up into the mountains and hide and use their own family as shields against us, because when we came and raided their compounds, they hid behind their wives and their kids. These guys were dirtballs. You know, and we would have to go in there and surgically remove these guys and make sure we don't accidentally shoot their wives and kids. They're cowards, and that's what these guys are. That's the only way Islam, you know, these guys fight in a cowardly way. Suicide bombers are cowards, you know, but the media doesn't want to cover that story. They keep trying to, rationalize their train of thought. They're rationalizing everything. The reality is, and I'm glad they killed the older brother, and I hope they kill the younger brother, like I said when I called in on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's what you do with these guys. After we got back from Afghanistan, we had a meeting.
Hold that thought. 751-1041 is the phone number. I want to make sure we have enough time on the next break. Plus, we're going to get to the phones. Chris is calling in, and I guess he's a bit of a history buff as well, and has some history in regards to the older brother who's dead's name and what it actually means. So we'll get to that coming up. And more with Frank Antenori. Plus,
yeah, they're Islamic names.
Yeah.
Their names are Islamic.
More details coming out of last night.
Media won't cover that. No. Only here will you get the truth.
Interesting, too. It'll be very interesting to see. They've been quiet about it all week long, how they cover this once this whole thing comes to an end. More of the John Justice Show with Frank Antenori coming up on 104.1 The Truth.